47 days after Margaret's funeral, Kenneth Moore's bank account hit 0.22 cents, not 0.22 cents. Like the system wanted him to see exactly how little remained. He'd called the VA hotline 6 times that month, and the county assistance office twice, and some nonprofit in Seattle, whose number he'd copied from a flyer at the grocery store. And they'd all said the same thing. Applications take 6 to 8 weeks to process, and there were forms, and he'd need documentation. And could he provide proof of income and medical expenses and residency, and nothing. His fingernails were split from trying to fix the trailer skirting with a bent screwdriver. Coffee in the mug next to the phone had been cold since yesterday morning. A fly, dead, floated in it. Kenneth's hand hovered over the filing cabinet, the one with the shadow box inside. Not yet, he said aloud. His phone vibrated, unknown number. He reached for it. Outside, gravel crunched. The fluorescent lights in O'Malley's Market buzzed like dying wasps. Kenneth Moore stood at checkout lane 4 with trembling hands. 90 years old, Navy SEAL. Survivor of the frozen hell called the Chosin Reservoir, and today he was about to do something that would have gotten him court-martialed in 1951. Trade his silver star for groceries. The medal sat on the black conveyor belt, next to a loaf of store-brand white bread, 1 can of chicken noodle soup, generic peanut butter, and a small bag of dry dog food for the stray that lived under his trailer. He didn't own a dog, but the mutt had kind eyes. Chloe, 17 and profoundly bored, dragged items across the scanner without looking up from her phone. Beep, beep, beep. Then her hand touched metal, cold, heavy. Wrong, she looked down. Sir? Kenneth's throat tightened. The words came out like gravel. I know this isn't normal procedure. Chloe picked up the medal, turned it over. The engraving caught the light. Kenneth A. Moore, Silver Star, Incheon Landing. September 15, 1951. We don't take like coins or whatever. It's silver, real silver. Worth more than $14, I assure you. The girl blinked. Processing. Failing. My register only does cash, card, or EBT. Kenneth felt the floor tilt slightly. 2 days without food did that. Made the world swim. Made your knees forget their job. He gripped the cart handle. I understand. But my pension didn't clear, and I seem to have run into a temporary financial difficulty. Temporary. 4 years temporary. Since Margaret died and the medical bills came. Since the reverse mortgage ate his house. Since he moved into that aluminum coffin on lot 42 and watched winter come through the walls. Chloe's face twisted into something between pity and panic. Let me get my manager. She hit a button under the register. Kenneth closed his eyes. Breathed. Tried not to remember Incheon. The freezing black water. The artillery shells walking across Darthabridge. The way Lee Patterson's blood looked in the moonlight after the shrapnel opened his throat. He'd earned this medal pulling 3 wounded Marines out of that water, while North Korean gunners tried to erase him from existence. Now he was trying to spend it on soup. A voice behind him cut through the shame. Male. Mid-40s. Casual. Hey, old-timer. I couldn't help but overhear. Kenneth turned. The man stepping forward had predator eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. Khakis. Polo shirt. Expensive watch. He smelled like cologne and opportunity. Ronald Lewis. He extended a hand. I run an antique shop downtown. Kenneth didn't shake it. Ronald withdrew smoothly, picked up the silver star from the belt, held it to the light like a jeweler appraising a stone. This is real. Named, dated. Korean War era. He whistled low. You know what something like this goes for at auction? Kenneth's chest tightened. I imagine quite a bit. 8 to 12,000. Easy. If you find the right collector. Hope flared. Stupid. Dangerous. Then perhaps. But that takes time. Listings. Provenance verification. Honestly? Ronald's smile widened. More trouble than it's worth for a quick sale. Tell you what though, I'm a generous guy. I collect kind of stuff as a hobby. I'll give you $20 cash right now. That covers your groceries and leaves you with change. The words landed like a fist. $20. For the worst day of his life memorialized in silver and ribbon. Kenneth's vision blurred at the edges. Not tears. Just the body shutting down. Prioritizing. Brain over eyes. Heart over dignity. $20, he repeated. Hollow. Cash. Today, neighbor helping neighbor, right? Ronald was already pulling his wallet out. Crisp $20 bill between his fingers. You look like you could use a hot meal, friend. Let's get you sorted. Kenneth's hand moved toward the money. Except it didn't, because a different hand. Scarred knuckles, rope-thick veins, clamped down on Ronald's wrist like a bear trap. The voice that followed was granite wrapped in barbed wire. "Put the 20 back. Before I make you eat it." Ronald's face went white. "Hey!" What? The walk away. The man who'd appeared was younger. Late 20s maybe. Shoulders that belonged on a linebacker, buzz-cut hair, grey hoodie, jeans. Boots with the kind of wear that said miles, not fashion. And at his left side, sitting perfectly still, was 85 pounds of sable German shepherd with amber eyes that promised violence. Ronald tried to pull free. Failed. "This is a private transaction." "I'm helping the old guy out. You're trying to buy a silver star for $20. That's not help. That's grave robbery." The younger man's grip tightened. "I'm going to count to 3. You can't just." 1. The dog stood. Didn't growl. Didn't have to. Okay. Ronald dropped the bill, grabbed his basket, scrambled toward another checkout lane like a rat abandoning ship. The younger man released him, watched him go, then turned to Kenneth. And his entire posture changed. The concrete left his shoulders. The threat evaporated. What replaced it was something Kenneth hadn't seen in years. Respect. The young man's hand came up. Not a handshake, a salute. Crisp. Textbook. Held, Sir, Corporal Brandon Taylor, United States Marine Corps, Force Reconnaissance. He lowered his hand. "It is an honor to meet you." Kenneth stared. "Processed. Failed." I don't." Brandon bent down, picked up the silver star from where Ronald had dropped it, held it like it was made of glass. "Read the inscription." Kenneth Moore, Incheon Landing. September 1951. He looked up. Navy, UDT, underwater demolition. Before we were called SEALs. Brandon's jaw tightened. Something moved behind his eyes. Memory, pain, kinship, frogman. "Long time ago. Not to me, sir." Brandon pressed the medal back into Kenneth's palm. Gently, firmly. "Put this away, please." Kenneth's throat closed. "Son, I appreciate the gesture, but I have no money. My card declined. I need to eat, I know." Brandon turned to Chloe, who'd been watching the entire scene with her mouth half open. He pulled a worn leather wallet from his back pocket, slid out a debit card, placed it on the counter, ring up his groceries. "On my card?" "No." Kenneth's voice cracked. "No, I don't take charity. I never have. I pay my own way." Brandon looked at him, really looked, and Kenneth saw it then. The limp he was trying to hide, the slight hesitation when he shifted weight to his left leg, the way his eyes flickered to the exits, the tick in his jaw when someone dropped a shopping cart too loud 2 aisles over. This wasn't a boy playing hero. This was a man who knew what it cost. "It's not charity, Mr. Moore. It's back pay." Brandon's voice went soft. "Ernest, I'm a Marine. You're a frogman. You paved the way for guys like me. Consider this a debt the Corps has owed you for 70 years. Chloe cleared her throat. Should I ring it up?" Kenneth wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain the last shred of dignity he had left. But his knees were shaking, and the can of soup on the belt was starting to look like a mirage. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." Chloe swiped the card. The register beeped approval. She bagged the items quickly, handed them to Brandon. Brandon handed them to Kenneth. "You have a way home, sir?" I walked. 6 blocks. In this rain? Kenneth glanced toward the front windows. The November sky was dumping ice water onto Bremerton. He'd walked here in a peacoat that should have been retired in 1985 and boots held together with duct tape. Brandon's expression hardened. Decided. "I'm driving you. My truck's outside." "That's not necessary." "Sir." Brandon's tone left no room for negotiation. "With respect. You look like you're about to fall over. Let me drive you home." The dog at his side looked up, tilted his head, and Kenneth saw something in those amber eyes that made his chest ache. Concern. When was the last time someone had looked at him like that? Margaret, 4 years ago, in the hospice bed. Right before, the morphine took her too far to come back. "All right," Kenneth said. "Thank you." Brandon nodded, gestured toward the exit. The dog fell into step beside Kenneth, not crowding, not pulling. Just there, they walked out into the rain. Brandon's truck was a Ford F-250, older model, dents in the quarter panel, tires caked in mud, but the engine turned over on the first try and the heater roared to life like a jet engine. Kenneth sank into the passenger seat. The warmth hit him like a narcotic. He closed his eyes, felt his body start to shut down. Sleep, real sleep, not the shivering, half-conscious nightmare he'd been living in for weeks. Brandon climbed into the driver's seat. The dog hopped into the back, immediately rested his chin on Kenneth's shoulder from behind. Warm breath against his neck. Kenneth's hand came up, touched the dog's head. Soft fur, solid skull, Alive. What's his name? Ranger. He's a retired military working dog. Bomb detection. Saved my life in Afghanistan. Twice, Kenneth scratched behind Ranger's ears. The dog's tail thumped against the seat. Good boy. Brandon shifted into drive. Where are we headed, sir? Trailer park off Kitsap Way. Lot 42. Brandon pulled out of the parking lot. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm against the rain. Neither man spoke for the first 3 minutes. Then Brandon broke the silence. Mr. Moore, can I ask you something? Go ahead, that receipt. The one sticking out of your coat pocket. I saw 3 transactions I didn't recognize. All from something called Apex Holdings. Kenneth stiffened. Pulled the ATM receipt from his pocket. Looked at it again. For the 100th time that day, Apex Holdings LLC, $250. 00 Apex Holdings LLC, 100,000 Apex Holdings LLC, $50. I don't know what that is, Kenneth admitted. I called the bank. They said the transactions were authorized. But I never authorized anything. Brandon's hands tightened on the wheel. How long has this been happening? I don't know. Today was the first time I checked my balance in a while. Shame crept into his voice. My pension is supposed to deposit $1,580 on the 1st. My reverse mortgage takes $1,200. That leaves me $380. But this morning I had 22 cents. Brandon's jaw flexed. Once. Twice. Do you still have the paperwork from your reverse mortgage? In a filing cabinet at home. Why? Because someone's stealing from you, Mr. Moore. And I'm going to find out who. Kenneth looked at the young Marine. At the white knuckle grip on the steering wheel. At the vein pulsing in his temple. Why? Kenneth asked. Why do you care? Brandon was quiet for a long moment. The truck turned onto Kitsap Way. Rain hammered the roof, finally. Because 3 months ago I was sitting in my apartment at 2 in the morning with my service pistol in my mouth. Kenneth's breath stopped. I came back from Afghanistan 14 months ago. Medically discharged. Shrapnel in my left leg. PTSD. Nightmares every night. My wife left me 6 months after I got stateside. Couldn't handle it. Can't blame her. I wasn't easy to live with. Brandon's voice went flat. Empty. I didn't have a mission anymore. No brothers. No purpose. Just disability checks and a head full of ghosts. So I decided the easiest thing would be to eat a bullet and call it done. He glanced at Ranger in the rear view. But Ranger wouldn't leave me alone. Kept pushing the gun away with his nose. Kept whining. Kept looking at me like I was abandoning him. And I realized someone still needed me. Even if it was just a dog. Brandon pulled into the trailer park. Gravel crunching under the tires. So when I saw you in that store, about to trade your honor for a can of soup, I thought, maybe someone else needs me too. Kenneth's vision blurred. Not from hunger this time. Brandon stopped in front of lot 42, put the truck in park, looked at the structure Kenneth called home, and didn't flinch, even though it deserved one. The trailer was a single-wide aluminum box from 1978. Rust stains bled down the siding like old wounds. The skirting around the bottom had rotted away in chunks. The front steps sagged at a 15-degree angle, and covering half the roof was a blue tarp held down with bungee cords and prayer. Kenneth felt the shame rise like bile. It's not much. It's home, sir. That's enough. Brandon killed the engine, grabbed the grocery bags. Let's get you inside. They climbed out. Ranger hopped down, stayed close to Kenneth as they navigated the death trap steps. Kenneth unlocked the door, pushed it open. The air that greeted them was colder than the air outside. Brandon stepped in, reached for the light switch, flipped it. Nothing. Power's out? Kenneth's voice was small. Has been for 3 weeks. I'm behind on the bill. Brandon pulled a small LED flashlight from his pocket, clicked it on. The beam swept across the interior, tidy. That was the first thing Brandon noticed. The floors were swept. The few pieces of furniture were arranged neatly. A small dinette table, 2 chairs, a sagging couch. Everything old, everything worn, but clean. Loved this was a man who'd spent his life in the military, where discipline meant survival, where even poverty had standards. Brandon moved to the kitchen area, turned the knob on the gas stove, heard the hiss of propane, struck a match from a box on the counter. Blue flame bloomed in the darkness. Gas still works. That's good. He found a pot, opened the can of soup, poured it in, set it on the burner. Kenneth stood in the doorway, watching, lost. Ranger padded over to him, sat, rested his head against Kenneth's thigh. Kenneth's hand came down, stroked the dog's ears. You don't have to do this. Brandon pulled the peanut butter and bread from the bag. Started making a sandwich. I know, I want to. Why? Because you would have done the same for me in 1951. The soup started to steam. Brandon found a bowl, poured, placed it on the dinette table along with the sandwich, pulled out a chair. Sit, sir. Eat slow. Your stomach's probably in shock. Kenneth sat, picked up the spoon. His hand shook so badly the first attempt missed his mouth entirely. Brandon pretended not to notice, filled a bowl with dog food for Ranger. Set it on the floor. Ranger didn't move. He stayed next to Kenneth, eyes locked on the old man, waiting. Only when Kenneth had eaten 3 bites did Ranger finally walk over and start eating. Brandon watched this, felt something crack in his chest. The dog knew. Ranger could smell cortisol, adrenaline, stress hormones. It was how he detected IEDs in Afghanistan, by sniffing out the nervous sweat of the bomb makers. And right now he was reading Kenneth like a book. Starvation, exhaustion, despair. Ranger finished his food, returned to Kenneth's side, lay down, put his head on Kenneth's feet. Kenneth looked down, blinked hard. I had a dog once. Margaret, my wife, she wanted one so badly, but she was allergic. We never could. She passed? Brandon asked gently. 4 years ago, pancreatic cancer. 18 months from diagnosis too. Kenneth stopped, swallowed the bills, even with insurance. They took everything. The house, the savings, all of it. Brandon pulled out the other chair, sat across from him. That's when you got the reverse mortgage? Kenneth nodded. Took another bite. A man came to the house. Richard Sanchez. Very nice. Very professional. Said he specialized in helping veterans. Said he could pay off the medical debt and I could stay in my home. I just had to sign some papers. But you didn't stay in your home. No. The bank foreclosed anyway. 8 months later. Mr. Sanchez said there'd been a complication, that the mortgage didn't cover as much as he'd thought, that I'd need to sell and move into something more affordable. Brandon's blood went cold. Did he help you find this place? He recommended it, yes. And the papers you signed, do you still have them? In the filing cabinet. Why? What are you thinking? Brandon's eyes were hard. I'm thinking Richard Sanchez is a predator. And you're not his only victim. Kenneth set down his spoon. Looked at Brandon. Really looked. You believe me? Of course I believe you. The bank didn't. They said everything was legal, that I'd signed the agreements, that I had no recourse. The bank doesn't care about legal. They care about liability. Brandon leaned forward. But I do care, and I'm going to need to see those papers. Kenneth stood, slower now. The food was helping. He walked to a dented metal filing cabinet in the corner, pulled open the top drawer, retrieved a thick manila envelope, handed it to Brandon. Brandon opened it, pulled out the stack. 53 pages, dense legal jargon, tiny font. The kind of document designed to hide needles in haystacks. He started reading. Kenneth finished his soup, made another sandwich, ate half, wrapped the rest in plastic wrap, put it in the empty refrigerator. Brandon was on page 47 when he stopped. Read it again, felt his pulse spike. Mr. Moore, come here, read this. Kenneth walked over, squinted at the page Brandon was pointing to. Section 12.4. Account management and administrative fees. The borrower hereby authorizes Apex Holdings LLC, a registered financial services entity, to withdraw reasonable fees for ongoing account management, advisory services, and administrative processing. Said fees shall be determined on a per-service basis and withdrawn directly from the borrower's designated checking account, as outlined in Addendum F. Kenneth's face went pale. I don't remember this. It's buried on page 47 of a 53-page document. You weren't supposed to see it. Brandon's voice was ice. Apex Holdings. That's the name on your bank statement. They've been pulling money out every month. Small amounts. 50 here, 100 there. Under the fraud alert threshold. But I never agreed to that. You did. Right here. When you signed this, Brandon's jaw was granite. This is financial elder abuse. And it's illegal. Kenneth sat down. Hard. How much do you think they've taken? Brandon did the math in his head. If they've been doing this for 2 years, at an average of $150 a month, somewhere around $3,600, the number hit Kenneth like a fist. 3,600. Gone. Stolen. While he was grieving his wife, while he was trying to survive, what do I do? Brandon pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts, found one he hadn't called in 8 months, hit dial, 3 rings. Then, yeah? The voice on the other end was scratchy, sleep-deprived, annoyed. Brandon smiled. Tim, it's Brandon. Silence. Then Taylor? Holy hell. I thought you were dead, not yet. I need a favor. Of course you do. Nobody calls me for birthday wishes. The sound of a chair creaking. Keyboard clicking. What's the target? Richard Sanchez. Runs a financial services company called Sanchez Financial Solutions in Bremerton, Washington. I also need everything on a shell company called Apex Holdings LLC. Give me 10 minutes, Tim. Yeah? It's off the books, a pause. Then aren't they all? I'll call you back. The line went dead. Brandon looked at Kenneth. Timothy Scott. Former Marine intelligence analyst. Lost his right arm in the same IED that got my leg. He's a cybersecurity contractor now. If there's dirt on Sanchez, he'll find it. Kenneth's hands were shaking again. Not from hunger this time. From rage. From violation. I trusted him. I let him into my home. I showed him pictures of Margaret, I know. He drank my coffee, I know, sir. And he robbed me. Brandon's eyes were stone. Yeah, he did. Ranger lifted his head. Looked at Brandon. Then at Kenneth. Then back to Brandon. The dog knew what was coming. Brandon's phone rang. 8 minutes. Tim was fast. Brandon answered. Talk to me. Oh, you're gonna love this. Tim's voice was electric. Manic. Richard Sanchez. Age 54. Clean record. Licensed financial advisor. Sanchez Financial Solutions Incorporated 2019. Specializes in reverse mortgages for elderly clients. Very respectable. But Apex Holdings LLC is a Delaware shell corporation registered in 2020. And guess who the registered agent is? Linda Sanchez. Richard's wife. Brandon's free hand curled into a fist. Keep going. The routing numbers attached to Apex Holdings all trace back to a single offshore account. Cayman Islands. I can't access the balance without breaking about 40 federal laws. But I can see the transaction history. And there are 14 separate bank accounts Apex has been pulling from. All domestic, all small amounts, all under 500 per transaction. Classic structuring to avoid currency transaction reports. Brandon's chest tightened. 14. Yeah. I cross-referenced the account holder names with public records. You ready for this? All 14 are military veterans. Ages 78 to 92. The air left the trailer. Kenneth's face went white. There are more. Tim kept talking. 3 are World War II Pacific Theater. 7 are Korean War. 4 are Gulf War 1991. All of them elderly. All of them probably vulnerable. This guy's not just a scammer, Brandon. He's targeting guys who served. Brandon's voice was barely above a whisper. Send me everything. Names, addresses, transaction histories, all of it. Already encrypted and in your inbox. Brandon. What are you going to do? I'm going to make a house call. FBI is going to want this. FBI will take 6 months to build a case. These guys don't have 6 months. Some of them probably don't have 6 weeks. Tim was quiet. Then, you need backup? I've got Ranger. That's not what I meant, I know. But it's all I need. Brandon's tone softened. Thanks, Tim, semper fi. Brother. Brandon hung up, looked at Kenneth. 14 victims. All vets, all elderly. All being bled dry by Richard Sanchez and his offshore shell game. Kenneth's jaw trembled. What do we do? Brandon stood. Walked to the window. Looked out at the rain, at the rust, at the poverty. Then he turned back. Tomorrow morning I'm going to pay Mr. Sanchez a visit. And he's going to wire $150,000 into your bank account. And into the accounts of the other 13 men he's been robbing. Kenneth blinked. How? Brandon's smile was cold. Dangerous. By giving him a choice he can't refuse. Ranger stood. Walked to Brandon's side. Sat, looked up at him with amber eyes that said, I'm ready. Kenneth stood too. Slower, but steady. You can't do this alone. I'm not alone. I have Ranger, I meant. You'll need someone who knows these men. Who they'll trust. Kenneth's voice firmed. I know 3 of them. Donald Wright. George Thomas. Edward King. We served together. If you're going after Sanchez, I'm coming with you. Brandon studied the old man. 90 years old. Half-starved, exhausted, but standing tall. Shoulders back. Seal once a frogman. Always a frogman. All right, Mr. Moore. But first, you need to sleep. Eat. Recover. Can I get you anything else tonight? Kenneth looked around his dark trailer. At the one bowl of soup that was already changing his life. At the dog who'd decided he was worth protecting. At the Marine who'd stopped him from selling his soul. No, I think I have everything I need. Brandon nodded. Pulled a business card from his wallet. Wrote his cell number on the back. Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. I'll be here in 10 minutes, thank you. Truly. Brandon headed for the door. Ranger followed. But at the threshold the dog stopped. Looked back at Kenneth, then trotted back. Sat in front of the old man. Lifted a paw. Kenneth stared. Then slowly, carefully, shook it. Ranger's tail wagged once. Then he returned to Brandon's side. They stepped out into the rain. Climbed into the truck. Brandon started the engine, let it warm. His phone buzzed. Text from Tim. Found one more thing. Sanchez's business partner. Guy named Ronald Lewis. Runs an antique shop downtown. Lewis Antiques and Collectibles. Looks like he's the one scouting victims. Appraises their valuables. Feeds them to Sanchez. Brandon's hands tightened on the wheel. Ronald Lewis. The same man who'd tried to buy Kenneth's silver star for $20 2 hours ago. Not opportunistic. Premeditated. Brandon's vision tunneled. Red crept in at the edges. Ranger whined. Put a paw on Brandon's leg. Grounding. Brandon breathed. Counted to 10. Let the rage settle into something colder. Sharper, useful. He typed back. Brandon. Address? Tim, 412 Pacific Avenue. Right downtown. Want me to call in a tip to Bremerton PD? Brandon. Not yet. I need to handle Sanchez first. Then Lewis. Clean. Sequential. No warning. You're scaring me, man. Brandon. Good. You should be scared. What Sanchez is doing, it's evil. And I'm done watching evil win because the system's too slow. Just be careful. Don't do anything that gets you locked up. Brandon didn't reply. Put the phone down. Shifted into drive. Tomorrow, Richard Sanchez would learn what happened when you stole from the men who'd bled for this country. Tomorrow, the war came home. Brandon managed 3 hours of broken sleep, nightmares about Helmand mixed with images of Kenneth's trembling hands. The IED blast. Timothy's arms spiraling through the air, the smell of burning flesh and diesel. Then Kenneth's face. Hollow, defeated. Trading honor for soup. He gave up at 0230 and sat at his kitchen table in the apartment that smelled like takeout containers and failure. Laptop open. Screen glowing blue in the darkness. Tim's encrypted files spread across 3 windows. 14 names. 14 addresses. 14 bank statements showing the same systematic theft. Ranger lay at his feet. Not sleeping either. Just watching. Waiting for orders that made sense. Brandon's leg throbbed. The shrapnel wound always got worse when it rained. Or when he sat too long. Or when he thought about Afghanistan. Which was always. He popped 2 ibuprofen, dry. Kept reading Donald Wright. Age 88. Tacoma. World War II Pacific Theater. Normandy. D-Day. Account balance. $14. George Thomas. Age 85. Olympia. Korean War. Chosin Reservoir. Living in a van behind a Walmart. Account balance. $6. Edward King. Age 82. Widower. Wife Betty was an army nurse in Korea. Died last year. Edward's account balance. $41. Each file told the same story. Medical debt. Reverse mortgage. Richard Sanchez. Apex Holdings. Slow bleed until nothing remained. Brandon's hands curled into fists. These men had stormed beaches, held frozen ridgelines, pulled their brothers out of burning vehicles, and now they were being gutted by a man in an Armani suit, who'd never heard a shot fired in anger. The rage was a living thing. Hot, acidic, familiar. He'd felt it in Helmand when the IED took out their convoy. When he dragged Timothy Scott out of the burning Humvee and realized the man's right arm was just gone, sheared off at the elbow, blood everywhere. Tim screaming, Ranger barking, enemy fire snapping overhead. Brandon had killed 3 Taliban fighters that day, close range. Methodical. Cold, and he'd felt nothing. That was the part that scared him, not the killing. The emptiness after. His therapist at the VA called it moral injury. Said it was normal. Said violence in defense of brothers wasn't murder, wasn't sin. But Brandon knew better, because when he'd put that pistol in his mouth 3 months ago, what stopped him wasn't guilt, or fear, or hope. It was boredom. He was too tired to pull the trigger. That's what PTSD did. It didn't make you suicidal. It made you indifferent. And indifference was so much worse. Until yesterday. Until he'd seen Kenneth Moore about to trade his silver star for soup. And suddenly Brandon's chest wasn't empty anymore. It was full of something that felt dangerously close to purpose. He pulled up Google Maps. Typed in an address. Sanchez Financial Solutions. 1247 Marina Boulevard, Bremerton. Modern building. Glass exterior. 3 stories. Waterfront view. The kind of place that screamed success and trustworthiness. And we care about veterans in 40-point font. Brandon memorized the layout. Exits, entrances, parking, security cameras visible on Street View. Then he pulled up Richard Sanchez's LinkedIn profile. Professional headshot, silver hair, expensive smile. Tagline, helping our heroes navigate financial freedom. 54 years old. Married to Linda. 2 kids in college. Member of the Bremerton Rotary Club. Volunteer at the local VFW. Of course he was. Predators always hid in plain sight. Brandon clicked through Sanchez's photo gallery. There, posted 6 months ago. Richard shaking hands with elderly veterans at a VFW fundraiser. Caption: Honored to serve those who served us. The comments were full of praise. Thank you for your service to our community. You're a good man, Richard. We need more people like you. Brandon's stomach turned. He closed the laptop, stood. Paced Ranger's head came up. Tracking, the plan forming in Brandon's mind wasn't legal, wasn't clean. Wasn't something the Marine Corps would approve of. But it would work, because Brandon understood something most people didn't. Violence wasn't always physical. Sometimes the most effective weapon was fear, and Richard Sanchez was about to learn what it felt like to be hunted. Brandon checked his watch. 0400 hours. 3 hours until sunrise. 2 hours until Kenneth would wake up. Probably hungry again. Probably still disoriented by the fact that his refrigerator now contained food. Brandon grabbed his phone. Texted. Brannon. Mr. Moore, it's Brandon Taylor. When you wake up, eat something. I'll pick you up at 0900. We're going to visit the other victims. Make sure they're okay. Then tomorrow we handle Sanchez. You still want to come? He didn't expect a reply until morning. The phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Kenneth, I'm awake. Can't sleep. Yes, I want to come. Thank you for asking. Brandon stared at the screen. Felt warmth spread through him. 90 years old. Starving. Exhausted. And still standing ready. Brandon, get some rest, sir. You're going to need it. Kenneth, so are you. Brandon smiled. Set the phone down. Looked at Ranger. What do you think, buddy? Am I insane? Ranger yawned. Didn't answer. Because dogs didn't judge. They just followed. Brandon made coffee. Drank it black. Watched the rain streak down the window. By 06:30 he was showered, dressed. Ready, khakis. Button-down shirt. Nothing threatening. Nothing that screamed combat veteran about to commit legally ambiguous extortion. Ranger got his service vest. The official one. Navy blue with reflective patches that said Surface Dog. Do not pet. They loaded into the F-250. Drove to a McDonald's drive-thru. Ordered 2 breakfast sandwiches and a large coffee. Then drove to Kenneth's trailer. The old man was waiting outside. Standing in the rain. Wearing the same peacoat, but underneath it now was a clean flannel shirt. Tucked in, boots polished, his face looked different. Less gray, less dead. Food and Hope did that. Brandon pulled up. Kenneth climbed in, moved slower than yesterday, his body still recovering from 2 days without food. But his eyes were sharper, clearer. Food and hope were powerful medicine. Morning, sir. Corporal. I brought breakfast. Brandon handed him the bag. Kenneth opened it, stared at the sandwich like it was made of gold. You didn't have to do this, I know. Eat anyway. Kenneth ate, slowly, carefully, the way you did when your stomach had forgotten what food felt like. Brandon drove, headed toward Tacoma. First stop, Donald Wright. Tell me about Donald, Brandon said. Kenneth swallowed. Met him in 52, Korea. He was Army. I was Navy. We both ended up at the Chosin Reservoir when the Chinese came across the Yalu. 17 days of hell. Minus 30 degrees, surrounded. Outnumbered 10 to 1, how'd you survive? We didn't think about surviving. We thought about the next hour. The next minute. Donald saved my life on day 12. Chinese sniper had me pinned behind a frozen jeep. Donald crawled 50 yards through snow. Took the sniper out with his sidearm. Got shot shoulder doing it. Brandon's jaw tightened. He earned a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. And my eternal gratitude. Kenneth's voice cracked. If he's in trouble now, I need to help him, we will. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. Crossed into Tacoma. Pulled up to an address that made Brandon's chest hurt. The house was small. Post-war bungalow. But it was dying. Gutters sagging. Paint peeling. Yard overgrown with blackberry brambles that had swallowed the fence. A foreclosure notice was stapled to the front door. Kenneth saw it. Went pale. No, Brandon killed the engine. Stay here. Let me check it out first. He climbed out. Ranger followed. They approached the door. Brandon knocked. 3 times. Firm. Non-threatening, nothing. He knocked again this time. Movement inside. Shuffling. A lock clicking. The door cracked open 2 inches. Chain still engaged. A pair of eyes appeared in the gap. Roomy. Suspicious. Terrified. I don't want what you're selling, Mr. Wright? Donald Wright? The eyes narrowed. Who's asking? My name is Brandon Taylor. I'm a Marine. I'm here about Richard Sanchez. The door slammed shut. Brandon heard the chain rattle. For a second he thought the old man was locking him out. Then the door swung open. Donald Wright looked like he'd been carved from driftwood. 88 years old. Stooped, gaunt, wearing 2 sweaters over a pair of pajama pants. But his eyes, sharp, hard. Still a soldier's eyes. What about Sanchez? He's been stealing from you, from 14 veterans, including my friend Kenneth Moore. Kenneth's in my truck. He wanted to see you. Donald's face shifted. Shock. Hope. Disbelief. Kenneth's alive? Very much so. Can we come in? Donald stepped aside. Brandon gestured to the truck. Kenneth climbed out, walked toward the house, slowly. Like he was approaching a ghost, the two old men stood face to face on the porch. Then Donald's face crumpled, and he grabbed Kenneth in a hug that would have broken a younger man's ribs. I thought you were dead. I called 6 months ago. Number disconnected, I thought. Kenneth's voice was thick. I had to cancel my phone, couldn't afford it. Donald. I'm so sorry, don't be. You're here now. That's enough. They went inside. The house was freezing, colder than Kenneth's trailer. Because at least Kenneth had propane. This place had nothing. No heat, no lights, no food in the kitchen. Donald sat at a card table that looked salvaged from a garage sale. Brandon and Kenneth sat across from him. Ranger positioned himself between Donald and the door, watching, assessing, Mr. Wright. When's the last time you ate? Donald's jaw worked. 3 days, maybe 4. Hard to keep track. Brandon pulled out his phone, opened DoorDash, ordered $50 worth of groceries from the nearest store. Delivery in 30 minutes. Then he looked at Donald. I need to see your bank statements. Everything related to Richard Sanchez, reverse mortgage, Apex Holdings. All of it. Donald's face went hard. You know about Apex? I know Sanchez is using it to steal from you. How much has he taken? I don't know. A lot. My pension deposits. Then it just vanishes. 50 here, 200 there. I called the bank. They said the transactions were authorized. They weren't. Sanchez buried a clause in your reverse mortgage paperwork. Page 47. Gave Apex Holdings permission to pull administrative fees whenever they wanted. Donald's hands shook. That son of a... Where's the paperwork? Donald stood, walked to a closet, pulled out a banker's box, dumped it on the table. Brandon sorted through it. Found the mortgage agreement. Flipped to page 47. There it was. Word for word the same clause Kenneth had signed. This is a boilerplate scam. He's using the same contract on all 14 of you. Kenneth leaned forward. How do we stop him? Brandon's eyes went cold. We make him give it back, Donald laughed. Bitter. Broken. Good luck. I tried stewing. Lawyer said I didn't have a case. Said I signed the agreement. That it was binding. The lawyer was wrong. Or paid off. Either way. This ends tomorrow. How? Brandon didn't answer. Because the how wasn't something he wanted to explain in front of witnesses. Instead, Mr. Wright, I need you to check your bank account tomorrow afternoon, around 2 p.m. Can you do that, I guess? Why? Because you're going to see a deposit for $150,000, and when you do, I need you to not ask questions. Just accept it. Use it. Pay off this foreclosure. Get your heat turned on. Buy food. Donald stared. You're insane, maybe. But I'm also serious. The doorbell rang. Grocery delivery. Brandon grabbed the bags, brought them inside, started unpacking. Bread, peanut butter, soup, eggs, milk, coffee. The basics. Donald watched like he was seeing a magic trick. Why are you doing this? Brandon stopped. Turned. Because you stormed Normandy. You held the line at Chosin. You earned the right to die warm and fed. Not starving in a foreclosed house because some coward in a suit decided you were an easy mark. They stayed another hour. Made sure Donald ate. Made sure he understood Brandon was serious about tomorrow. Then they left. Next stop, Olympia. George Thomas. The address Tim had sent led them to a Walmart parking lot specifically. To a rusted Dodge van parked at the far edge, away from the lights. Away from security cameras. Kenneth's face went white. George is living in a van? Brandon pulled up alongside it, killed the engine. The van's windows were covered with cardboard taped from the inside. A crooked handwritten sign in the windshield said veteran. Please do not tow. Brandon knocked on the side panel. Movement inside. Then a voice, rough, wary. Go away, Mr. Thomas. My name is Brandon Taylor. I'm a Marine. I'm here with Kenneth Moore. Silence. Then. Kenneth Moore's dead. Kenneth leaned out of the truck window. Not yet, George. Open the door. The van's back doors cracked open. George Thomas looked like a skeleton wrapped in military surplus. 85 years old. Beard down to his chest. Eyes sunken, but bright. Alert, he saw Kenneth and something broke. You old bastard. I went to your funeral. Kenneth blinked. What? 2 years ago. VFW put out a notice, said you'd passed. There was a memorial service and everything. Kenneth's face went slack. I didn't know. Where the hell have you been? Surviving. Barely. Kenneth climbed out of the truck. Walked to the van. George. What happened? You had a house in Olympia. Near the capital. George's laugh was sandpaper. Sanchez happened. Took out a reverse mortgage to pay for Betty's funeral. She wanted to be buried next to her parents in Virginia. Cost $12,000 just to transport the body. Sanchez said he could help. 6 months later, the bank foreclosed. Brandon's jaw flexed. When? Last April. Been in this van since May, 8 months. Living in a Walmart parking lot. In Washington. Through summer heat and now winter cold, Brandon looked at Ranger. The dog was staring at George with the same intensity he'd used on Kenneth. Reading stress hormones, cortisol, despair. Ranger whined. Soft, high, the sound he made when he detected a bomb, because George was a bomb, ready to go off. One bad day from swallowing pills or stepping into traffic, Brandon made a decision. Mr. Thomas, get in my truck. What? You're not sleeping in this van tonight. You're coming with me. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's orders. I'm a corporal. You're, what rank? George straightened despite himself. Sergeant. Army. 2nd Infantry Division. Then you know how this works. I outrank you in joint operations. Get in the truck. George's mouth opened, closed then incredibly. He smiled. You're a bossy little. Yes, sir, I am. Now move. George grabbed a duffel bag from the van, climbed into the truck's back seat. Ranger immediately pressed against him, offering warmth. Comfort. George's hand came down, stroked the dog's head. What's his name? Ranger. He's a good boy, the best. Brandon drove them to a motel off I-5. Nothing fancy, but clean, heated. $49 a night. He paid for 3 nights. Handed George the key card. You're staying here until we sort this out. George stared at the card. I can't pay you back. I don't want you to. Just stay alive, okay? That's payment enough. George's eyes went wet. He nodded. Couldn't speak. Brandon ordered pizza delivery to the room. Made sure George had the number for the front desk. Made sure he knew how to work the shower. Then they left. Kenneth was quiet on the drive back to Bremerton. Finally. How many more are like that? According to Tim's research, at least 4. Maybe more, and you're going to help all of them? Brandon's hands tightened on the wheel. I'm going to try. With what money? You can't keep paying for motels and groceries out of pocket. I'll figure it out. Kenneth studied him. You already have a plan, don't you? I have the beginning of a plan. Which is? Brandon pulled into Kenneth's trailer park. Put the truck in park. Looked at the old man. Tomorrow morning. I'm going to walk into Richard Sanchez's office, and I'm going to make him transfer every dollar he's stolen back to the men he took it from. Kenneth's eyes widened. How? Brandon's smile was cold, empty. The smile of a man who'd killed before and would again if necessary. By explaining the alternative, Kenneth swallowed. Brandon, you can't. If you threaten him, that's extortion. You'll go to jail. Only if he reports it. And he won't. How do you know? Because I'm going to give him something worse than jail to be afraid of. Kenneth wanted to argue, wanted to talk sense, but he looked at Brandon's face and saw something that stopped him cold. This wasn't a young man playing hero. This was a warrior who'd found his mission, and nothing. Not law, not morality, not consequence, was going to stop him. Kenneth nodded slowly. When do we leave? We don't. I go alone. The hell you do, Mr. Moore. Kenneth, my name is Kenneth, and if you're walking into a fight, you're not doing it without backup. That's not how we do things. Brandon wanted to refuse, wanted to protect this old man who'd already suffered enough. But Kenneth's face was stone. Seal once a frogman. Always a frogman, all right. Tomorrow. 0800, I pick you up. We visit Sanchez. But you stay in the truck with Ranger. I go in alone. Deal? Kenneth hesitated, then nodded. Deal. Brandon dropped him off. Watched him climb the sagging steps into his trailer. Then drove home. Spent the rest of the day planning, studying, preparing. By midnight, he had everything he needed. By 0200, he tried to sleep. Managed 4 hours before the nightmares returned. Helmand, IEDs, Timothy's missing arm, Kenneth's hollow face. But this time when he woke at 0600, sweating and shaking, Ranger was there, and the mission waiting today pulled him back from the edge. He showered, shaved, dressed in khakis and a button-down. Professional, non-threatening. He strapped a digital recorder to his chest under his shirt. Washington was a one-party consent state. Everything Sanchez said would be admissible. Ranger got his vest. They loaded the truck, picked up Kenneth at 0800. The old man was ready, wearing his cleanest clothes, face set, determined. They drove to Marina Boulevard in silence. Sanchez Financial Solutions sat on the waterfront like a monument to success. Glass, steal, money. Brandon pulled into the parking lot, found the reserved spot labeled R. Sanchez. Empty. He parked 3 spaces away, checked his watch. 0847. At 0853, a black Mercedes S-Class pulled into Sanchez's spot. The man who climbed out was exactly what Brandon expected. Mid-50s, silver hair, tailored suit, Patek Philippe on his wrist. The kind of watch that cost more than George Thomas's van. Sanchez walked toward the building with the confidence of someone who'd never been punched in the mouth. That was about to change. Brandon waited 5 minutes, giving Sanchez time to settle, get coffee, boot up his computer. Then he looked at Kenneth. Stay here. If I'm not out in 30 minutes, call this number. He handed over a business card. Detective Amanda White, Bremerton PD. A contact Brandon had cultivated through the VFW. Kenneth took it. Be careful, always am. Brandon and Ranger climbed out, walked toward the entrance. The lobby was everything the exterior promised. Marble, leather, an espresso machine that probably cost $5,000. The receptionist looked up, mid-20s. Professional smile. Good morning. Do you have an appointment? No, but Mr. Sanchez will want to see me. Tell him I'm here about Kenneth Moore. The smile faltered. I'll see if he's available. She picked up the phone, murmured into it. Brandon couldn't hear Sanchez's response, but he saw her face change. She hung up. He'll see you now. 3rd door on the left. Brandon walked down the hall, Ranger at his side. Stopped outside the door marked Richard Sanchez, Principal. Took a breath, opened it without knocking. Richard Sanchez sat behind a glass desk the size of a small car. He looked up, smiled. The same professional warmth from his LinkedIn photo, Mr. Taylor. Is it? My receptionist said you're here about Kenneth Moore. Is everything all right? Kenneth is a valued client. Brandon closed the door, locked it. Sanchez's smile froze. I don't think that's. Brandon walked to the center of the office, unclipped Ranger's leash. Ranger. Guard. The dog moved to the door, sat. 85 pounds of muscle and teeth between Sanchez and the exit. Sanchez stood. What is this? You can't. Sit down. I'll call security. No. You won't. Brandon's voice was flat, empty. The voice he'd used in Afghanistan when giving orders that meant someone was about to die. Because the second you reach for that phone, my dog is going to interpret it as a threat. And Ranger doesn't do warnings. Sanchez looked at the dog, at the amber eyes locked on him like targeting lasers. He sat down. Brandon pulled a chair close to the desk. Sat, leaned back. Casual. Let's talk about Apex Holdings. The color drained from Sanchez's face. Sanchez's hands went to his desk drawer. Slow, deliberate. I don't know what you're talking about. Brandon didn't move, didn't blink. Ranger. Speak. The bark was deafening. Sharp, aggressive. The sound a war dog made before tearing into enemy flesh. Sanchez jerked his hand back like he'd touched fire. Good choice. Now, open your laptop. This is insane. You can't just I am, laptop. Now, Sanchez's jaw worked. His eyes darted to the door, to Ranger, back to Brandon, then his fingers moved to the laptop. Opened it. The screen glowed to life. Brandon stood, walked around the desk, stood behind Sanchez, close enough to smell his expensive cologne and cheap fear. Log into your Cayman Islands account. Sanchez's breath caught. I don't have a. Brandon pulled a folded stack of papers from his pocket, dropped them on the desk. Timothy Scott, former Marine Intelligence, current cybersecurity contractor. He pulled your entire financial history in 8 minutes. Apex Holdings LLC, registered agent Linda Sanchez, your wife, offshore routing numbers, 14 victims, all combat veterans, all elderly, all being bled dry while you drive a Mercedes. The silence stretched, thin, fragile. Then Sanchez's shoulders sagged. You don't understand. It's not illegal. They signed contracts. Everything is binding. I have lawyers. Your lawyers can't help you now. Why not? Brandon leaned down, put his mouth next to Sanchez's ear. Because lawyers work in courtrooms, and we're not in a courtroom. We're in a room with a locked door, a trained attack dog, and a Marine who spent 18 months in Afghanistan learning very creative ways to make people cooperate. Sanchez's hands shook on the keyboard. You're threatening me. No, I'm giving you a choice. Brandon straightened, pulled up a chair, sat. You can log into that account. Transfer $150,000 to each of the 14 men you robbed. And walk away from this with your freedom and your kneecaps intact, or I let my friend Timothy forward this entire file to the FBI, the SEC, the IRS, and the Seattle Times. You'll be arrested within 48 hours, your assets frozen, your reputation destroyed, and you'll spend the next 12 years in a federal prison. where the guards are veterans and the inmates love hearing about scumbags who steal from old soldiers. Sanchez's face was chalk. That's extortion. Call it what you want. You have 60 seconds to decide. You can't do this. Brandon checked his watch. 55 seconds, this is illegal. 50 seconds, I'll call the police. 45. And you should know. Washington is a one-party consent state. I've been recording this entire conversation, so when you call the police, they're going to hear you admit to running Apex Holdings, which means they'll have probable cause to seize your accounts. And then you'll get nothing. The victims will get nothing. And you'll still go to prison. Sanchez's breathing was ragged. Panicked. You're insane. 30 seconds. What you're asking for is $2.1 million. I can do math. 25. That's everything. The account will be empty. Brandon's eyes were ice. Good. That means you can't hurt anyone else. 20. Please. I have a family. Kids in college. I can't. 15. And those kids are going to college on stolen pensions. Blood money. So forgive me if I don't care about their tuition. Sanchez was sweating now. Visible beads on his forehead. Upper lip. What if I only transfer half? 1.05 million. We split it. You take your cut and walk away. Brandon stood, walked to the door, put his hand on the knob. Sanchez's voice cracked. What are you doing? Leaving, Ranger. Come, wait. Sanchez half rose from his chair. Don't go. I'll do it. I'll transfer the money. Brand turned, studied him. Let the moment stretch until Sanchez was vibrating with terror. Then he walked back to the desk. Smart. Log in. Sanchez's fingers fumbled on the keys. 3 times he mistyped his password. On the 4th, try the banking portal loaded account balance. 2,437,891.14. Brandon pulled Tim's list from his pocket. 14 names. 14 routing numbers. 14 account numbers. Set up wire transfers. 150,000 to each account. Do it now. Sanchez's hands moved like they belonged to someone else. Setting up the first transfer. Kenneth Moore. Routing number. Account number. Amount 150,000. He paused. If I do this, you'll leave me alone? No FBI? No news story? Brandon's expression didn't change. Complete all 14 transfers. Then we'll talk. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Transfer number 2. Donald, right move. Sanchez kept working. Each transfer taking 90 seconds. Confirmation screens popping up. Green checkmarks, transfer 3. George Thomas, transfer 4. Edward King, 5. 6. 7. 437,819. Then 2,287,819. Then 2,137,90. By transfer 10, Sanchez was crying, actual tears running down his face. This is everything. Everything I built. You didn't build anything. You stole it. I have bills. Mortgage. Car payments, then get a real job. Transfer 12. 13. The final transfer completed at 0927. Total disbursed. $2 million. Remaining balance. 337,891.14. Sanchez stared at the screen like he'd just watched his children die. It's done. Are you happy now? Brandon pulled out his phone, opened his encrypted messaging app, sent a text to Timothy Scott, Randon. Transfers complete. Sanchez complied. Sending you screenshot for verification. He snapped a photo of the confirmation screen. Sent it. Tim's reply came back in 15 seconds. Time. Holy shit, you actually did it. Transfers are legit. Already clearing into the destination accounts. Brandon, what did you do to him? Brandon didn't answer, pocketed his phone, looked at Sanchez. Now, the second part. Sanchez's head snapped up. What? You said if I transferred the money. I said we'd talk. Now we're talking. Brandon leaned against the desk. Casual. You're going to shut down Apex Holdings. Today. File dissolution paperwork with Delaware. Close the Cayman account. Sever all connections to the shell company. Why? It's empty now anyway, because I don't trust you. And if that company still exists tomorrow, I'm going to assume you're planning to rebuild, to find new victims. And I'll come back. Sanchez swallowed. Fine. I'll dissolve it. Good. Next, you're going to call Detective Amanda White, Bremerton PD. You're going to tell her you've discovered irregularities in your business. That your associate Ronald Lewis may have been operating without authorization. Coercing clients, stealing valuables. You want me to throw Ronald under the bus. I want you to tell the truth. Lewis was full of Stuttelmetzels. War memorabilia, heirlooms. He's been fencing them for profit. That's theft. Receiving stolen property, elder abuse. All felonies. If I report him, he'll report me. No, he won't. Because by the time the police talk to him, You'll already have filed a report claiming he acted independently, that you had no knowledge of his criminal activities, that you're cooperating fully with the investigation. Sanchez's eyes widened. You want me to betray him? I want you to survive. And the only way you survive is if Lewis takes the fall. Sanchez was quiet for a long moment, thinking, calculating then. If I do this, if I call the detective, turn in Ronald, dissolve Apex, you'll leave me alone? No FBI? Brandon considered. I'll forward the Apex Holdings files to the FBI anyway, but I'll tell them you cooperated, that you self-reported, that you made full restitution. With that on record, and a good lawyer, you might avoid prison, might? That's the best I can offer. Take it or leave it. Sanchez stared at his laptop, at the empty Cayman account, at the wreckage of his carefully constructed scam. Then he reached for his phone. Dialed, Detective White? This is Richard Sanchez. Sanchez Financial Solutions. I need to report a crime. Brandon walked out of that office at 0952. Kenneth was in the truck, white-knuckled, staring at the entrance like he expected Brandon to be carried out in handcuffs. When he saw Brandon and Ranger walking calmly across the parking lot, relief flooded his face. Brandon climbed in, started the engine. Kenneth's voice was tight. What happened? Check your bank account. What, your phone? Call the automated line. Check your balance. Kenneth pulled out an ancient flip phone, dialed, punched in his account number and PIN. The automated voice was clear even through the tiny speaker. Your current available balance is $150,000.22. Kenneth's phone clattered to the floor. Brandon caught the phone, hung up, handed it back. Kenneth was shaking. How? How did you? I asked nicely, Brandon. What did you do in there? Gave him a choice. He made the right one. Brandon pulled out of the parking lot. Sanchez is wiring $150,000 to each of the 14 victims, dissolving Apex Holdings, and turning in Ronald Lewis to the police. Kenneth blinked, processed, failed. Ronald Lewis, the antique dealer? Sanchez's partner, the man who tried to buy your silver star. He's been scouting victims, stealing their medals and heirlooms, fencing them for profit. Sanchez just threw him to the wolves to save his own skin. Is that legal? What you did? Brandon's jaw tightened. Probably not. But it worked. And by this time tomorrow, 14 men who were starving will have money, food, heat, a chance. Kenneth stared at him. You risked everything for us. No, I risked everything for them. For Donald, George, Edward, for the men who earned the right to die with dignity. Brandon's voice went quiet. And maybe. A little bit. For me? What do you mean? 3 months ago I wanted to die. Had the gun in my mouth and everything. Then yesterday, I saw you about to trade your honor for soup. And something clicked. I remembered why I joined the Marines. Not to kill, but to protect, to serve. To stand between good people and the bad things that want to hurt them. He glanced at Kenneth. You gave me that back. You and Donald and George and the others. You gave me a mission. And missions are the only thing that's ever made sense. Kenneth's eyes were wet. We should check on the others. Make sure the money came through. Brandon nodded, pulled onto the highway, headed toward Tacoma. They reached Donald Wright's house at 10:47. The foreclosure notice was still on the door, but through the window they could see lights. Heat shimmer rising from the vents. Brandon knocked. Donald opened the door wearing a clean shirt and a smile that could have powered the city. It came through. The money, it actually came through. I thought you were insane. But it's real. It's in my account. Kenneth stepped forward, grabbed Donald in another bone-crushing hug. We're going to be okay. All of us. How did you do it? Brandon shrugged. Sanchez saw reason. Did you threaten him? I gave him options. He chose wisely. Donald laughed. Sharp, relieved. You're either the bravest or the stupidest man I've ever met. Little of both. Brandon handed him a business card. This is Detective Amanda White, Bremerton PD. She's going to call you in the next few days. About Ronald Lewis, the antique dealer. He stole valuables from some of the victims, including a Purple Heart that belongs to you. I need you to file a report. Get your medal back. Donald's face went hard. He has my Purple Heart in a safe, along with 22 other items. Police are moving on him this afternoon. Good. I want it back. That medal. My father gave it to me the day I shipped out to Normandy. Told me to come home with it or not at all. You'll get it back. I promise. They stayed another 20 minutes. Made sure Donald knew how to access his account, how to pay off the foreclosure, how to get his utilities restored. Then they drove to Olympia. The Walmart parking lot looked different in daylight. Busier, More families loading groceries. More normal. George Thomas's van was gone. Kenneth's face fell. Where is he? Brandon pulled out his phone. Texted the number George had given him last night. Brandon, where are you? The reply came instantly. George, motel room. Just checked my account. I don't understand. There's a $150K. Is this real? Brandon, very real, use it. Get an apartment. Get off the street. George, how? Brandon, long story. I'll explain later. For now, just accept it. You earned it. George, I don't know what to say. Brandon, don't say anything. Just live. Brandon showed Kenneth the texts. The old man's face crumpled. He's safe, for now. We'll check on him again tomorrow. Make sure he's okay. They drove back to Bremerton. At 13:30, Brandon's phone buzzed. Text from Tim Time. Just got off the phone with Amanda White. She hit Lewis's antique shop with a warrant an hour ago. Found the safe. 23 items. Medals. Watches. Heirlooms. Ledger book documenting everything. Lewis is in custody. Charged with elder abuse. Receiving stolen property. Conspiracy. He's looking at 4 to 6 years, Brandon showed Kenneth. The old man's expression was grim satisfaction. Good. One predator down. Tim, also. FBI just called me. They want to know how I obtained financial records on Sanchez. I told them anonymous tip. They're opening an investigation anyway. Sanchez is going to have a bad month, Brandon. Let them investigate. Sanchez made full restitution, cooperated, turned in Lewis. He'll probably avoid prison time, probably. But his reputation is done. Word's already spreading through the financial advisor community. Nobody's going to trust him. He's finished. Randon. Good enough. Brandon pocketed his phone. Looked at Kenneth. It's over. Sanchez is done. Lewis is arrested. The victims have their money. You're safe. Kenneth nodded slowly. What happens now? Now you go home. Turn your heat on. Buy groceries. Fix your trailer. Live your life. And you? Brandon considered. I don't know. I hadn't thought past today. You should think about it. Because you have a gift. For helping people. For seeing injustice and refusing to look away. Men like you. Men with your skills and your conscience. They're rare. I'm not a hero, Kenneth. Maybe not. But you're something close. The old man leaned forward. There are more out there. More veterans being scammed. Exploited. Forgotten. I hear stories at the VFW. Men losing homes, going hungry, dying alone. The system doesn't help them. Can't help them. Too slow, too bureaucratic. What are you suggesting? That you keep doing this, not exactly like today, but something. A program, an organization. A way to protect the men who protected us. Brandon frowned. I'm one guy with a truck and a dog. I can't. You're not one guy. You have me. You have Donald, George, Edward. All 14 of us were alive because of you. We owe you. And we want to help. Help how? Kenneth's eyes were bright. Sharp. The VFW has an emergency fund. Donations. Fundraisers. Maybe $25,000. It's supposed to be for veterans in crisis. But we never use it because nobody knows who needs it or how to help. You could change that. Coordinate. Investigate. Intervene when necessary. Brandon sat back. Thinking a program. Not formal. Not bureaucratic. Just a network of veterans helping veterans. Led by someone willing to get his hands dirty when the system failed. It made a kind of sense. And it gave him something he'd been missing since Afghanistan. A mission I'd need help. Contacts, resources. I know the VFW commander. Stephen King. Good man. Army. Gulf War. He's been trying to start something like this for years. Never had the right person to run it. And you think I'm the right person? I think you're the only person. Because you don't do this for money or recognition. You do it because it's right. And that's the kind of leader we need. Brandon looked at Ranger. The dog tilted his head, ears forward, waiting. Then he looked at Kenneth. At the old SEAL who'd survived Korea and poverty and starvation and was still standing. Still fighting. Still believing in something. Okay, set up a meeting. With Stephen King. With anyone else at the VFW who wants to help, we'll talk. See if this is even possible. Kenneth smiled. It's possible, I promise you. It's possible. They drove back to Kenneth's trailer. Brandon helped him call the utility company. Pay off his arrears. Schedule a reconnection for tomorrow morning. Then they went shopping. Real shopping. At a grocery store that didn't judge. Filled a cart with food. Meat. Vegetables. Bread. Coffee. Enough for a month. Kenneth kept stopping in aisles. Staring at products like he'd forgotten they existed. I can afford this now. I can actually afford food. Yes, sir. You can. They loaded everything into the truck. Drove back to the trailer. Carried it all inside. Brandon stayed until Kenneth's refrigerator was full. His pantry stocked. His propane tanks topped off. until the old man's home felt less like a tomb and more like a place someone actually lived. At 17:30, Kenneth's phone rang. He looked at the screen, frowned. Unknown number, answer it. Kenneth flipped it open. Hello? A voice on the other end. Tight. Strained. Rehearsed. Kenneth's eyes widened. Mr. Sanchez? Brandon leaned closer, listening. Sanchez's voice was barely audible. Mr. Moore, I'm calling to apologize. There was an error in my accounting. Fees that were charged to your account incorrectly. I've issued a full refund. You should see it reflected in your balance. Kenneth's jaw worked. An error. Yes. A mistake on my part. I take full responsibility. I'm deeply sorry for any inconvenience this may have caused. Inconvenience. Kenneth's voice was stone. I was starving. I tried to sell my silver star for groceries. That's not an inconvenience. That's survival. Silence on the line, then. I understand, and I'm truly sorry. If there's anything else I can do, there's nothing. Just don't ever contact me again. Kenneth hung up, sat there, staring at his phone. Brandon didn't say anything, just waited. Finally, Kenneth looked up. He sounded terrified. Good. He should be. What did you say to him in that office? Brandon took a bite of his burger, chewed, swallowed. I told him the truth. That men like you deserve better. And that I wasn't going to stand by and watch him destroy you. By threatening him, by giving him a choice. Kenneth studied him. You've done this before, haven't you? Not this exactly, but violence, coercion. This isn't new for you. Brandon met his eyes, didn't flinch. I was force recon. We did a lot of things the Marine Corps doesn't advertise in recruiting videos. Interrogations, extractions, high-value target acquisitions. Sometimes force was necessary. Sometimes fear was more effective than bullets. And that doesn't bother you? It used to. When I first got back, I'd wake up at night replaying missions, wondering if I'd crossed lines, if I'd become the thing I was fighting against. He paused. But then I realized, the men I hurt in Afghanistan, they were planting IEDs, recruiting child soldiers, executing village elders. They were evil, and stopping evil sometimes requires getting your hands dirty. And Sanchez? Sanchez isn't evil. He's weak, greedy. A coward who preys on the vulnerable because he's too scared to face anyone who might fight back. So I gave him something to be more scared of than his greed. And it worked. At 1800, Brandon's phone rang. Unknown number, he answered. Taylor, a woman's voice, professional. Calm, Mr. Taylor. This is Detective Amanda White, Bremerton PD. I understand you're the one who tipped us off about Ronald Lewis, among others. Yes, we arrested him this afternoon. Recovered 23 stolen items from his safe, including medals, watches, family heirlooms. We're working on returning them to the rightful owners. I wanted to thank you. This is a good collar. Just doing what's right, Detective. I also got a call from Richard Sanchez. Said he's cooperating with an investigation into financial irregularities at his firm. Mentioned your name. Said you. Encouraged him to self-report. Brandon's jaw tightened. Did he? He did. And I'm choosing to take that at face value. Because 14 elderly veterans just received 6-figure deposits into their accounts. And Ronald Lewis is in custody. And the world is a slightly better place than it was yesterday. So whatever you did, however you did it. I'm not going to ask questions, I appreciate that. But Mr. Taylor, if you're planning to make a habit of this, vigilante justice, extortion, however you want to label it, I need you to know, I can only look the other way once. Next time, I'll have to arrest you. Are we clear? Crystal? Good. Because I'd hate to put a man like you in jail. We need more people willing to stand up for our veterans. Just do it legally next time. I'll try, Detective. She hung up. Brandon stared at his phone. Kenneth raised an eyebrow. Trouble? Warning shot. White knows what I did. She's letting it slide this time. But there won't be a this time again, so what will you do? Be smarter, more careful. Work within the system when I can. Around it when I can't. Sounds like you're already planning the next mission. Brandon smiled. Maybe I am. At 1900 he drove home, fed Ranger, made himself dinner. Sat at his kitchen table, staring at his laptop. Tim had sent over the full files on the other 13 victims. Names, addresses, stories. Each one a variation on Kenneth's nightmare. Medical debt, reverse mortgage, Sanchez, Apex Holdings. Slow financial strangulation until nothing remained. But now they had money, had hope, had a chance. Brandon opened a new document, started typing. Project name, Guardian Watch, mission. Protect elderly veterans from financial exploitation. Provide emergency assistance. Coordinate with local VFW posts. Investigate suspected abuse. Intervene when necessary. Leadership, Brandon Taylor. Coordinator, Kenneth Moore. Advisor, Stephen King. VFW Liaison, VSD Emergency Fund. Volunteer Network, pro bono legal support. He typed for 2 hours. Building a framework, a structure, a plan. By 2000, he had a rough draft. By 2100, he'd emailed it to Kenneth and Stephen King. By 2130, Stephen had replied, "Stephen, this is exactly what we need. When can we meet, Bran?" "Tomorrow." 1400. VFW Post 1009, Stephen. "I'll be there. And I'm bringing people. This is going to be big." Brandon closed his laptop, looked at Ranger. "What do you think, buddy? Are we doing this?" Ranger's tail thumped once. Brandon took that as a yes. He tried to sleep. Managed 4 hours before the nightmares returned. Helmand. IEDs. Timothy's arm. But when he woke at 0200, sweating and shaking, Ranger was there, and the mission waiting tomorrow pulled him back from the edge. He didn't sleep again, but he didn't need to. Purpose was better than rest. Morning came. Brandon was up at 0600, showered. Dressed. By 0800, he was at Kenneth's trailer. The old man was ready, excited. Moving better than yesterday. Food and hope working their magic. We're visiting the rest of them today, making sure everyone's okay. Then the meeting at 1400. Kenneth nodded. "Let's go." They spent the morning driving across Washington. Tacoma, Olympia, Bellingham, Everett. Each stop the same. Shocked veterans. Tears. Gratitude. Questions Brandon deflected with. Sanchez made it right. By noon, they'd seen 8 of the 14. All safe, all fed, all planning their futures. At 1330, they pulled into VFW Post 1009. The parking lot was full. More cars than Brandon expected. Inside, the meeting room was packed. 30 people, maybe more. Veterans, spouses, volunteers. Stephen King stood at the front, mid-60s, barrel-chested. Army insignia tattooed on his forearm. He saw Brandon. Grinned, walked over, extended his hand. "You must be Taylor. Kenneth told me everything. What you did, how you did it, brother. You're either crazy or a saint." Brandon shook his hand. "Little of both. Come on. Let's get started." Stephen called the room to order. "Most of you know why we're here." Yesterday, a young Marine named Brandon Taylor did something the system couldn't. He recovered $2.1 million stolen from 14 of our brothers, forced the thief to make restitution, got a predator arrested, and he did it in less than 24 hours. Murmurs through the crowd. Impressed. Skeptical. Stephen continued. Brandon's proposed a program, Guardian Watch, a network to protect elderly veterans from scams, exploitation, abuse. I've read his plan, and I think it's exactly what we need. Brandon, come up here. Tell them. Brandon stood, walked to the front, Ranger at his side. He looked at the faces, old, young, hopeful. "Wary, I'm not going to lie to you. What I did yesterday wasn't legal. I threatened a man, coerced him, recorded him without his full knowledge, and I'd do it again. Because the alternative was watching 14 men starve while the system moved at glacial speed, silence. But we can't do that every time. We need structure, legality, a way to help, without breaking laws. Guardian Watch is that way. Weekly check-ins, financial literacy training, legal hotline, emergency fund, simple, effective. Legal." A hand went up. Woman, mid-50s. "What if we find another Sanchez? Another?" "We report them to police, FBI, State Attorney General. We gather evidence, build cases, let the system work." But he paused. "If the system fails, if someone's in immediate danger, we adapt, we find another way, another hand. Man, 70s, who pays for this? VFW Emergency Fund to start, 25,000. We use it carefully, strategically, and we fundraise, grants, donations, community support." Kenneth stood. "I'll donate 10,000 from my restitution." To get us started, the room gasped. Another veteran stood. "I'm one of the 14. I'll match that. 10,000 and then another 5,000 from me." Within 5 minutes, 40,000 in pledges. Stephen's eyes were wet. "This is happening. We're doing this." Brandon felt the weight lift. Not the PTSD, not the nightmares, but the purposelessness. The drift. He had a mission again. And missions were how warriors survived. 7 days later, Brandon sat in a small office inside VFW Post 19. Guardian Watch had a desk, a phone, a computer, and a waiting list of 12 cases. Stephen King walked in, dropped a file on the desk, got another one. Woman named Dorothy Lopez, 81. Husband was Gulf War, died 2 years ago. She thinks someone's stealing from her account. Same pattern as Sanchez, small withdrawals. Shell company. Brandon opened the file, read, felt the familiar anger rise. Who's the company? Patriot Financial Services. run by a guy named Kevin Wright. Copycat, looks like. What do you want to do? Brandon pulled out his phone. I'm going to call Detective White. File a report. Let her investigate legally, and if she can't move fast enough? Brandon's smile was thin. Then we adapt, Stephen nodded. That's what I thought. You need backup? Not yet, but I'll let you know. Stephen left. Brandon stared at the file. Dorothy Lopez, widow, vulnerable. Target. He picked up the phone. Dialed Detective White. It's Brandon Taylor. I need to report suspected elder financial abuse. The system was slow, but Guardian Watch was faster. And when the system failed, Brandon would be there, because warriors without missions didn't survive. But warriors with purpose, with brothers, with a cause worth the fight, they thrived. That evening, Brandon was closing up the office when Kenneth walked in. The old man looked different, healthier, color in his cheeks, weight coming back, but more than that. Purpose in his eyes. I've been thinking. Kenneth sat across from Brandon. About what you said. About missions. About purpose, yeah? For 4 years after Margaret died, I was just existing, waiting to die. Every day was the same. Wake up cold. Go to bed hungry. Repeat. I'd given up. Brandon listened, then you showed up. This angry Marine with a dog. And you didn't just give me money. You gave me a reason to wake up, to keep going, to help others. Kenneth's voice cracked. You saved my life, Brandon. But more than that, you gave it back. Brandon's throat tightened. Kenneth, let me finish. I want to work with Guardian Watch, officially. I know these men. I speak their language. I can reach them in ways you can't. Let me help. Brandon studied him. It's volunteer. No pay. I don't need pay. I have money now. What I need is purpose. Same as you. Brandon extended his hand. Welcome to Guardian Watch, Kenneth. They shook. Ranger walked over, sat between them. Put his head on Kenneth's knee. The old man scratched the dog's ears. Good boy. Outside. Rain fell on Bremerton. Cold. Relentless. November turning to December. But inside VFW Post 1009, 3 warriors sat together, planning, preparing, building something that mattered. 1 Marine, 1 SEAL, 1 dog, and a mission that would never end. 3 weeks later, Guardian Watch had helped 6 veterans, prevented 2 scams, recovered $30,000, all legally, all documented, all clean. Brandon sat in his apartment, laptop open, reports filed, cases closed. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Taylor, a voice, elderly, female, trembling. Is this Brandon Taylor? From Guardian Watch? Yes, ma'am. My name is Rebecca Davis. I'm 48. My father is Joseph Anderson. He's 78. Gulf War veteran. And I think someone's stealing from him. Just like those men on the news. Brandon grabbed a pen. Tell me everything. Rebecca's story spilled out. Her father, alone after her mother died. A financial advisor named Kevin Wright. Friendly, helpful. Then the money started disappearing. Small amounts. Her father didn't notice at first. But now his account was almost empty. I don't know what to do. The bank says everything's authorized. But my dad, he has respiratory issues from burn pits. He's not thinking clearly. He wouldn't authorize this. Brandon's jaw set. Ms. Davis, where does your father live? Olympia. I'll be there tomorrow morning with a detective. We're going to help him, I promise. Thank you. Thank you so much. Brandon hung up, immediately called Detective White, explained. She listened, agreed to investigate. Then Brandon called Kenneth. We've got another one. Kenneth's voice was steady. I'll be ready. Pick me up at 0700. Brandon hung up. Looked ready. The dog's ears were up. Alert. Ready. Looks like we've got work to do, buddy. Ranger barked once. Brandon smiled. Because this was it. This was why he'd survived Afghanistan. Why Ranger had stopped him from pulling that trigger. Why Kenneth had walked into O'Malley's market that day. Not to die, but to live. To fight. To protect. Warriors without missions didn't survive. But warriors with purpose. With brothers. With a cause bleeding for. They didn't just survive. They thrived. And Brandon Taylor. Kenneth Moore. And Ranger. They were just getting started.